Today's read aloud is titled Rosa Parks, Mother of the Civil Rights Movement. Meet Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks was an ordinary woman who did something extraordinary. On December 1st, 1955, she refused to give up her seat on a city bus. This simple act of defiance helped launch the Civil Rights Movement in the United States. Today, Rosa is remembered as a true hero. Rosa was born on February 4th, 1913, in Tuskegee, Alabama. She went to schools that were for African American students only. Segregation laws also kept Black people out of some restaurants, stores, and other places. When Rosa was 19, she met Raymond Parks, and the two married. They settled in Montgomery, Alabama. In 1943, Rosa joined the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. Soon, she became secretary to the president, E.D. Nixon. She also worked in a store. Rosa rode a city bus to and from work. Black people could sit only in certain areas. These seats were toward the back of the bus. If all the white seats were full, Black passengers had to give up their seats and stand. If there was no place to stand, Black people had to get off the bus. Trouble on the bus. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa boarded a bus after work. She sat in a seat behind the Black section sign. As the bus filled up with white passengers, the driver moved the sign back. He told Rosa and 3 other people to give up their seats. Rosa refused. The police took Rosa to the police station. She was charged with breaking one of Montgomery's segregation laws. Rosa was put in a jail cell until some friends came to bail her out. Boycott. After Rosa's arrest, Black people in the area were asked to boycott all Montgomery buses. A young minister named Martin Luther King Jr. was chosen to lead the bus boycott. The Montgomery bus boycott began on Monday, December 5th. Thousands of people stayed off the buses. They found other ways to get around town. The bus companies lost a lot of money. Finally, after 381 days, Montgomery got rid of its busing segregation laws. The boycott was a huge victory for the Civil Rights Movement. But for Rosa and her husband, it was the beginning of a very hard time. They both lost their jobs and were unable to find new ones. In 1957, they moved out of Alabama. They later settled in Detroit, Michigan. Civil rights leader. The civil rights movement continued to grow. In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act. It ended segregation at work, at restaurants, at stores, and at other public places. Rosa continued to work for equality for African Americans. In 1987, Rosa founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development. It teaches young people how to reach their life goals. She also received many awards. In 1996, President Clinton presented her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 1999, she received the Congressional Gold Medal. Rosa died on October 24, 2005. She was 92 years old. Her coffin was put in the United States Capitol building in Washington, D.C. It was a great honor. More than 50,000 people came to say goodbye. Rosa believed that America should be a land of equality for all people. She forever changed the course of history and is a hero to millions of people. Today's read aloud is titled Barack, written by Jonah Winter and illustrated by A.G. Ford. Looking back, it's hard to believe how far he has come. The man whose name the world now knows, Barack Obama. This is a journey that began in many places. It began in Kansas, home of Barack's mother. It began in Africa, home of Barack's father. It began in Hawaii, one moonlit night, the night Barack was born. Sometimes it was a sad journey. When Barack was just a toddler, his father moved far away. Sometimes it was an enchanted journey. When Barack was only 6 years old, his mother brought him to live with her new husband. For young Barack, Indonesia was a most exotic land. His stepfather kept an ape as a pet and 2 crocodiles. But it wasn't all wonderful in Indonesia. There was poverty, unlike anything Barack's young eyes had ever seen. And sometimes Barack felt very out of place. Who am I? He wondered. Surrounded by his Indonesian classmates, he looked different from them. He spoke a different language. His birthplace was thousands of miles away. Where do I belong? These were the questions Barack would ask again and again on the most unusual journey. But when the journey brought him back to Hawaii, alone, to attend American school, the place where he belonged was with his loving grandparents, who took good care of him until and after the thankful day his mother returned to Hawaii with his new half-sister, Maya, only to go back to Indonesia, taking Maya with her. Oh, sometimes it was a confusing journey. When Barack was only 10 years old, his father just showed up one day, a total stranger. Who was this man? Barack would wonder through the years, for this was the only time he ever saw his father, who had long since moved back to Africa. And when his father packed his bags to leave again, Barack could not stop imagining what his father's homeland, Kenya, must be like. On the other side of the world, there were half-brothers, half-sisters, aunts, uncles. They wore different clothes, they spoke a different language, and yet they were his family. Where do I belong? The voice inside his head kept asking. In school, he had friends of all different backgrounds. African American, Caucasian, Hawaiian. He belonged with them all. But still, Barack's mother was Caucasian. His father was African. So what did that make Barack? For Caucasians, it simply made him black. For some African Americans, though, it made him less African American. Who am I? Oh, but this was a journey on which Barack would find out exactly who he was. From his college days, when he learned how much he could move people just with the power of his words in a speech. To his early days in Chicago, where his job was helping poor people help themselves and helping them for very little pay. Some people thought he was too young, too privileged to ever understand their poverty. Sometimes it was a lonely journey. What am I doing here? He often wondered, with the cold Chicago wind in his face, slowing him down, pushing him back. But he didn't give up, for somehow his journey had led him to Trinity Church. surrounded by the people from his neighborhood, including many he had helped. And there, swept up in the waves of their singing, with tears on his cheeks, he knew why he was there. He knew who he was, and he knew where he belonged. He was there in Chicago because he cared about these people. They were his family. People in Kenya were his family. Indonesians were his family. And no matter where he was, the world was his home. And who he was could be summed up in one word: lovable. When you learn to love yourself, you make it easier for others to love you. That is what happened to Barack, who started climbing a ladder of popularity that led him to a seat in the Illinois State Senate, and then up farther to the U.S. Senate. He arrived here during a dark time in American history. All across America, people were losing their jobs, losing their houses, losing their sense of hope. Many people were tired of a war that had gone on too long. They were tired of fighting with their neighbors over politics. They were just tired. In an earlier age, there had been hope. There had been a man named Martin Luther King Jr. who had spoken with passion of his hope for better days. He had said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." And on the horizon, at the dawn of a new age, there appeared a man who would be the embodiment of King's dream, a presidential candidate whose very being was a bridge that joined nations. Here was a man who spoke of hope and change, whose strong words lifted up the downhearted people and made them believe that the world was not beyond repair. Here was a man whose journey had brought him to cheering rallies all around America, including one in Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham was a place where policemen had once turned fire hoses on African Americans, who, for many years, were made to sit at the back of the bus, drink from separate drinking fountains, watch as their churches were burned to the ground. And here, right here, this great man spoke in a beautiful voice about his own dream of bringing people together, overcoming our differences, not just in America, but around the whole world. Here, right here, in this country, with its history of slavery and racism, an African American named Barack Obama rose to unimaginable heights because he refused to let other people tell him who he was. Because again, once again, his journey was just beginning.